Hi, and welcome to Basic Folk, where we have honest conversations with folk musicians. We're on the Bluegrass Situation Podcast Network. It's me, Cindy Howes. I host this podcast. So glad to have you here today. Before we get into our guest, the lovely and talented and super cool Kaia, let's talk about our mailing list. Have you signed up for it? It is a once-a-month email that lets you know what is going on with your favorite folk podcast, Basic Folk. You can sign up for it at the link in the show notes, or you can go to basicfolk.com. There is a link to sign up there. And thank you. You can follow us on social media at Basic Folk Pod. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can become a contributing member to Basic Folk, which is so crucial because it helps me from going completely broke trying to make this folk podcast. If you are a contributor, thank you so much. It's really amazing that there are so many people that are able to give $5 or $10 a month or a one-time gift. If you'd like to join them and help us out, you can go to the show notes. There is a link there to donate, or you can go to basicfolk.com. You can just straight up make a donation. I'll send you a cool Basic Folk sticker if you want, or you can go to the store and get a Basic Folk beanie. I mean, it's getting kind of warm for beanies, but you're going to be very happy when the fall rolls back around, the cool weather kicks back in. You're going to have your Basic Folk beanie because it's handmade by my mom. This podcast's mother is a very talented knitter. Get in on that. Link in the show notes or basicfolk.com. Okay. After banjo player Kaia attended Americana Fest in 2016, the music industry started telling her she was part of the genre, which encompasses all kinds of roots music, acoustic music, folk music, singer-songwriter, and alternative country. She was singing about heavy themes like historical trauma, her cultural heritage. Her father is from the Caribbean country of Grenada, and her music history. She confesses in our interview that she never felt comfortable in Americana, that she was always just on the outside, never fully feeling accepted by this mostly white world. Kaia has declared that her new album, Strange Medicine, comes from a place that lays beyond the white gaze of Americana. This music is filled with emotional healing, with music production that sonically reflects the vulnerability that she is expressing so deeply for the first time in her career. It's also the first time she's avoiding metaphors and really letting her most raw feelings about colonialism, sexism, racism, and misogyny rip. These songs see her using violent language and releasing emotions she'd previously kept frozen, like anger and revenge. While creating Strange Medicine, she listened to a lot of instrumental music, allowing her ears to be bigger than they had been on previous records, which translated to her being more willing to take big swings and take risks. Kaia attended school to learn film composition, allowing her to be more comfortable with being a little bit more overstated in her songs, which certainly proves to be true on the new record. Another good piece of news is that the banjo is back. After using it very minimally on her last release, Kaia picked it up again after listening to a lot of Steve Reich, a composer who developed a groundbreaking minimalist style in the 1960s that's marked by repetition. His work helped Kaia conceive of the banjo as an instrument that could hypnotically play patterns over and over. We go through this monumental album track by track and unwind songs with topics from Tituba's Revenge to getting the critic out of the room to realizing the critic is you. She also recounts her history in her hometown of Montreal and what the internet was like when she first logged on in the 2000s. Kaia, the new album Strange Medicine. We're going to listen to clips from the record throughout the interview. So sit back, relax, and enjoy one of our faves, Kaia on Basic Folk. Kaia, so nice to see you. I can't believe you were like guest number 3 on Basic Folk. So this is great.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be back. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay. The new album, Strange Medicine. Holy shit. What a fucking great album. Okay. So some of these questions have long setups, as you might have guessed. So let's go. So from your press, I got a track by track, and I also have like a long album bio that I'm taking information from, and also have listened to the album like 50 times. So the album bio says it's an album beyond the white gaze of Americana, unbeholden to a music industry that so often tokenizes and silences marginalized voices, a Black feminist perspective on a genre that refuses to cede power to Black women. So here's the question. Can you talk more about what you mean by the white gaze of Americana means? And also, like, what does freedom beyond that gaze mean to you? And where do we hear that freedom in this album?
We're starting off really light. I love it.
Yes, great. Just nice, easy one.
Okay, so let's start with the idea of the white gaze of Americana. I always considered myself a folk singer. I discovered Americana in 2016 when I went to Americana Fest. So Americana as a concept was really new to me, and I think it sold itself because it was kind of, I think to me, kind of a commercial venture in a lot of ways. It was a genre that, as I understand, was created by radio DJs who did not want to spin commercial country and felt like there was another lane for artists who didn't fit into that genre to exist in. And so I just kind of got told that I was an Americana artist, and I don't know. I think I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Whatever helps get more butts and seats at my shows or helps more people discover my records. But I always felt kind of outside of the genre, a little bit uncomfortable. I was singing, from the beginning about like a lot of historical events, singing about like, ways that I felt disempowered as a woman, or ways in which I think I wanted to sing about something more than love and flowers. And in that way, I think Americana felt limiting to me. And I also, like, the people that I saw up on the stages at Americana Awards did not look like me at all. And so I don't know, I just kind of felt like a little bit like alien from that entire industry and genre. And as political as Americana as a genre and the institutions around Americana, as political as they said that they were, and as like progressive as they said that they were, I found that there was a really big gap between who they felt that they were, which were these like progressive white liberals, and what their politics actually consisted of, which I felt was like just kind of a lot of emptiness. And that's not to like disparage the entire Americana industry. There are like so many incredible Americana records, but I felt like, let me like reject this whole framework and just see like start from a far more like baser instinct, which is see what sounds I like, what people do I want to collaborate with, what people do I feel are kind of like pushing the boundaries of Americana or folk or jazz or blues. And so it was just, I think, like just a rejection of like trying to fit in and narrow myself more and more to to achieve this. To me feels like kind of like a hollow version of success.
Was that the end of the answer?
I mean, yeah, I don't remember the other questions.
I was like, sorry. I was like, really, I mean, that your answer was really resonating with me. Especially like the emptiness of it all. Like, I feel like sometimes in Americana, it's like, it's more about like who's in, it's like one of those situations where you're talking to somebody and they're actually like looking around the room to see who else is there,
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure happens in so many different places in the music industry and in the, you know, the world in general, in our society in general. But yeah, the other questions we're talking about, like, what does freedom beyond the gaze mean to you? And then where do we hear the freedom on the record?
Yes. Okay. Back on track. Okay. What is freedom beyond the gaze? Freedom beyond the gaze of Americana would be, I think, freedom within genre. So I think the way that I conceptualized of like freedom within genre with Strange Medicine was, okay, well, what's the standard? The standard is you're a songwriter, you make whatever, 10 or 12 songs, you hire a producer, you bring in a band, a drummer, a bass player, a guitar player, and then you make a record. I have made a record that way in the past. I in no way disparage it. Grenades, my last record, that was exactly the process. But I was rethinking, you know, okay, with Strange Medicine, a lot of the songs that were coming out were much more vulnerable and personal to me. You know, I think I'd always kept like my songs at arm's length, and I'd kept them like I'd obfuscated them enough that people could be like, well, what's this about? And I could be like, well, it's whatever you want it to be about. You know, but like they couldn't really get a direct window into me or how I felt.
That
about
old
anything.
song and dance.
That old song and dance, literally. And so I think with Strange Medicine, I was like, well, I have to make this sonically reflect, you know, what I want to hear and the sounds that I like. And so I worked with Joe Grass, who's my co-producer on the project, and we demoed out a lot of the songs. We tried out a lot of different people who came in to play different things on the album. Everything was very slow and deliberate, and I felt that I had a lot of freedom to say, that's not what I want, this is what I want. And that, I think, maybe was a freedom that came with being in my late 20s. It was a freedom that I never felt in my early and mid 20s. I always felt as the songwriter like the smallest person in the room during a recording session. And wow. I don't think that that's an accident, you know, that I'm like obviously a biracial person of color. A lot of the roots scene and the folk scene in Canada is like all white people. And I think it's like really easy to just belittle myself and say, well, I only wrote the songs. You know, if like my creative instincts, you know, might not be as sharp as other people's who are older than me and more experienced than me. And no one really disabused me of that idea either. Like very few people would like stop a conversation in the middle of the room and say, wait, what do you think, Kaia? Right. And I also like, I never claimed that space for myself either. So Strange Medicine, I think, was a place where I could say, you know, this is what I want sonically. I would love to work with this person, you know, blah, blah, blah. There are really no electric guitars on the album. And Joe, my co-producer, is a guitar player. He plays mostly electric guitar. And it was a really deliberate choice on his part and my part to say, okay, well, what if we make a folk record or an Americana record with absolutely no electric guitar? Like, what room does that leave for other things to kind of fill that space? And it was just so joyful. I thought a lot about groove more than anything. I was like, how do we keep this groovy? You know, the bed tracks that I laid down were me and a drummer, you know, for like entire days. And
drums are so good on this record.
Thank you. That was deliberate. It was like, okay, we can, you know, I can write this song, but like if I don't feel the pulse between the banjo and the drums, you know, then something's wrong, something's off. And so yeah, again, it was a really from the ground up process. And yeah, and I think, you know, rejecting the idea of like having a session musician kind of come in and do their kind of like rote thing that they do for songwriters. I think I really wanted players who thought about it a lot, you know, maybe to the point of overthinking where you're like, all right, back it up. Like you had a great idea 3 takes ago, you know, let's stick with that, you know, but it was always a conversation, and I was always being returned to as not only the songwriter, but like the composer. And so it was a beautiful experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, seriously.
That sounds so great. And I'm like so thrilled for you that you're at this like stage in your life. Like when I was your age, like I was nowhere near this. This sounds so great, Kaia.
Well, that's on my good days. I have my bad days.
I mean, totally. Yeah. There's like the days where you're just like, I'm going to watch 6 hours of TV under my blanket. Goodbye.
Yeah, Vanderpump Rules. Let's go.
So on this record, this sounds like a really like it's a tough record. It sounds like a tough record for you to have written. You were working through your most raw feelings about couple of things: colonialism, sexism, racism, misogyny, greatest hits, working to release emotions that you'd previously kept frozen, like anger and revenge, using violent language you previously felt wasn't acceptable. So what do you think finally gave you permission to unfreeze all those feelings and use that violent language? And also maybe you want to like define what you mean by violence, because it's such a big word.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think by violence I mean like in the song Mechanics of the Mind, like the scene begins with an executioner waiting for, like a hooded executioner waiting for someone to like walk up the steps of the gallows, and then it like the next verse is like nuclear war and a mushroom cloud, and so I think when I'm talking about violent language, I'm talking about I think like historical trauma, or like bloody, gory, very outwardly disturbing, I guess. I would say probably disturbing language. But even then I think you make a good point in that, like when we talk about violent language, like what do we mean? Because there are so many ways, like misogynistic language is violent language. Racist language is violent language. And I think I was just trying to use evocative and imagistic language that would call something to the mind that felt like easily accessible for the listener. I wanted to hide less in metaphor, and just kind of be like, yeah, I'm pissed off, or like, I feel vengeful, or I feel, enraged. And when I think about it, I think a lot of the literature that I really love has a lot of that in it. Like Flannery O'Connor, The Violent Bear It Away. Like there's so much terrifying imagery, like wildfires and like just like biblical stuff that feels viscerally scary. And I mean it's also not a coincidence that while I was writing a lot of these songs, I mean, like I started writing Strange Medicine in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protests. I was living in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and there were like helicopters over Flatbush and large parts of Brooklyn, and there were these like massive protests. I went out to them. The NYPD was like being terrible as always, and so I think I did, and then obviously the pandemic, and so I guess this is all to say that like I did not write Strange Medicine during a very peaceable time in the world, and I think that it kind of shows in my writing. I also was stuck in my apartment writing, and so maybe some of those anxieties just like wrote their way into a lot of the songs, in a way that like I'm okay with, because it's a snapshot in time more than anything.
You attended film school to learn composition, and you also completed a residency in film scoring and composition. And it sounds like this new skill made its way into this album. Specifically, there's a instrumental part in Fedon that feels like such a movie to me. How have your songs become more cinematic since your film composing studies?
I think I've become more comfortable with being a little bit more overstated in my songs.
Extra.
Extra overstated. Being a little extra. Yeah. Really, I'll credit to Frankie Russo and Dominic Mecchi, who they were they did the orchestral arrangements on this record, and Joe and I thought of them really early on in the process, because I think we could tell that the songs were trying to tell pretty big stories. And so along that vein of like ditching the electric guitar, we were like, well, what else could fill this space? And we were both fans of Frankie and Dom's, and they happened to be available. And, I split my time between Canada and the US, but I have a place in Brooklyn, and Frankie and Dom live just one neighborhood over. So while we were making the record, I would take the subway and go see them and listen to the arrangements and give them feedback. And so we would just kind of go around like that. And I think it was really cool to just open the door to the idea of orchestral arrangements in a way that I'd never really been able to do before. And I also felt, I think this is like in tandem with my growth as an artist, where I felt able to handle the idea of bigger arrangements, and also handle like trust in my instincts, about where to say yes, go big here, or actually, hey, could you pull back here? And they also had amazing instincts. During Strange Medicine, I didn't listen to a ton of songwriters. I listened to a lot of instrumental music, a lot of Holst. Gustav Holst has an incredible series of orchestral compositions called the Planets. And so you can listen to like one is Mars, one is Saturn. And so I would just listen to them all the time. Steve Reich, who is really known for like looping instruments and drums and percussion. I listened to his stuff a ton. Philip Glass. I listened to a lot of Mary Lou Williams. She was a jazz composer
from Pittsburgh.
Hey. Yeah, and so I think it just, my ears were bigger than they had been on previous records, and so I was more willing to like take big swings and take risks.
The banjo, she's back. Hooray. On this record, there is so much banjo. You put it aside for your previous album for the most part. You were pushing back against expectations you felt as one of the few Black banjo players. And then, so I feel like the realization came that you are the source of creativity. It's not necessarily your instrument. So you found your way back to the banjo, which led to some pretty cool experimenting, which you have documented a bit on your social media, on the TikTok and the like. What is your relationship like with the banjo now?
Cindy, that's a great question. I think, when I got in touch with Joe originally about making this new record, I was like, there's not going to be any banjo on it, and like, we're synths only, blah, blah. And he was like, okay, sounds good. But yeah, the more I got into it, the more my mind expanded, and I felt like, okay, well, the banjo, listening to a lot of Steve Reich actually helped me like conceive of the banjo as an instrument that could like play patterns over and over again in this like hypnotic way, right? Which led me to think like, well, then it can be a sequencer in the same way that like you can program certain synthesizers to just play a pattern over and over again, tirelessly. And so my curiosity for like how I could do new things with the banjo, that started growing, and I felt this like resurgence of inspiration, because I think before I'd looked at the banjo and I was like, well, like I've done everything that I've wanted to do on it, I in order to grow, I need to like push this thing aside, and I need to reject blah 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 blah.
So dumb.
Yeah, so dumb. Oh my God. And I'm really really happy that I took a pause, and I was like, well, in what ways can I like dig into this instrument in a different way? And I think at the same time, like, really found a banjo community, like, especially during the pandemic. Like, Brandy Pace started the Fort Worth African American Music Festival.
Ugh, love.
I went in and played, and we jammed at the end of the day, at the end of the festival. And I was like in this jam and realizing that like this jam was like all Black and mixed people, and just feeling like, whoa, like, when did this happen? Like, during the Grenades era, I just felt so alone. I met Lizzie Knows, like the co-host of Basic Folk. I just met a lot more people in this like era between 2020 and 2024. And yeah, I think it just gave me more of a push and inspiration that I needed.
Do you and Brandy have a project in the works?
We do, yeah. It's called the Sable Sisters. We're called the Sable Sisters, and we both have a million other projects, so we're trying to figure out a time that works for both of us to get together. But we just got a grant from the IBMA Foundation.
Oh, so cool.
An Arnold Schultz grant, and we will be making a little EP together.
Brandy Pacewaller is like a miracle of a human being. I really enjoy her. She's a musician and also founder of the Fort Worth African American Music Festival, FWAM
Fest,
an amazing festival that takes place in Texas. All right, what I want to do is go through the album and ask you questions about the songs. So let's do it. First track, What the Hell, is such a fucking doozy. The Witch.
I was a storm in a teacup, thickening the water steeped in my anger, and you claim to be the one to understand. Don't you understand? You're not a friend to me, just a stranger grinning like some sick entertainer. Is this the going trend? Oh, pious pilgrim, your temper is bad. You won't tell me how I got here, I don't know where I'm at. Oh, what a vision when I dreamt I moved through you and burned my name into your chest.
So, Kaia, this is a song where you are bringing the receipts. The character in this song, who I feel like it's a couple different characters, but a big one is Tituba from the Salem witch trials. So the character is furious, and she is going to haunt the shit out of her perpetrator. And it's going against the archetype demure, well-behaved female, the white, thin doll everyone wants women to be. She is the messy, violent witch. So, Kaia, how have your feelings for the witch evolved over your life?
The concept of the witch?
The concept of the witch.
Oh man, I've always loved witches. I've always been a little scared of them too, like Roald Dahl's book.
Oh yeah.
The witches, where you just like the little boy sneaks in and sees this witch convention, and they're, they hate children, and they're I think they're everything that is like opposite of what a feminine, motherly woman is like supposed to be, and so he's like terrified by them and intrigued, and and so I think like as I saw more and more films about witches, Hocus Pocus 2, I don't know, I think I found them to be really interesting, and I was compelled by them, but by no means like obsessed. And then it was during the pandemic that I started watching more like films about witches. I watched The Witch, which is a 2015 film by Robert Eggers, which is like, it's very strange and like a crazy psychological horror thriller thing that is, there's a goat in it. Anyway, people should watch it. And then I watched Macbeth. I think it was Joel Cohen's Macbeth remake, where the three witches are played by one actor, and the way that they did the cinematography is she kind of morphs into three crows, and creeps out Macbeth at different points in the film, and then also like is able to harness his grimmer side and his desire for power, and I think to see like this like influence, this like repulsion and attraction that I think we as a culture have to witches, but especially like men during the Salem witch trials, primarily being the people who would cast aspersions and then basically kill women, a ton of women, with this accusation of like you're a temptress, you're trying to you cast a spell on me, like you're trying to influence me in some sort of way, and I just wanted to play with that idea, and also like this idea that I felt a lot as a woman, which is that you have to keep yourself safe at all times around men. Like you just have to be so vigilant, even if it's like someone who's saying that they're a friend.
Yeah.
If you're like a little drunk, if you're like, it's so constant. And I felt like I grew up in an era where it was like, there was not a conversation about like why boys and men grow up with this, like inheriting this violence and perpetrating this violence. It was like, they're just going to do that. And here's how, like, you should carry your keys in your hand when you go into your apartment building. And so I just felt like it was just drilled into me. And it just felt so incredibly unfair. And I don't know, I just wanted to kind of marry those concepts together. And like, what happens if the person who has been called a witch and burned at the stake, like what if she survives? And like then who should be scared? You know, it was totally a revenge fantasy. And I've had so many revenge fantasies about like men who have hurt me. And I think it's considered like not evolved. Like revenge is to be an evolved person, you must forgive. But I actually have found like a lot of healing in anger, and and so the witch is it's just like a composite of a ton of different things and a ton of different experiences. And also I think with aloe vera stems and blistered skin, I'll stitch myself back together again. It's like a meditation on healing when you feel like your soul has been part of your soul has been robbed to such an irredeemable point. It's like, no, actually you can always heal. And at the end it says, you'll know my name. And that's a direct quote from Chanel Miller's book, Know My Name. She wrote a book after being sexually assaulted by Brock Turner at a party. She was Emily Doe. And so she put out this book called Know My Name. And so I a lot of that, which is like, we're not random people. Yeah. Like we have names, we have histories, and we're not just going to accept this, so.
Yeah. Wow.
So they've come to claim me, to play with my patience, to try and possess me. I have to say that I'm fatigued. 6 advisors at a round table, counseling that I may not stay valuable unless I'm writing verses and telling tragic stories.
Maker Taker. This is a song where you had to very consciously remove the idea of the listener and the critic because you wanted to write for yourself and have the most creative freedom. So in getting ready for this, were there any practices or rituals you needed to do to get the critic out of the room? And then like, what did you notice once you pushed them out? Like, what was the result? Like, how did your writing change?
Mm-hmm. I think I realized that the critic was me.
Oh shit.
Yeah. That's what it is. It always comes back to you. The critic was me. The expectations that I felt around me a lot of the time were self-imposed. I think it's a really interesting thing to marry music and commerce. And I know that it changes a lot of artists, a lot of people's relationship with music. Like, I think before you start to try to make your career out of this, you have this very beautiful, pure, joyful relationship with music. And then you decide to make it a career, which is a choice, and things change. And like more and more kind of like ghosts or people's voices, or a lot of it was me, but also sometimes it's the label, sometimes it's a fan like saying that they didn't like your last record, or a review or whatever it is. Like, there are a lot of little streams coming in, and so to push them all out and say, like, well, why, if touring makes me anxious a lot, why do I like touring? And like finding those answers. And the truth is, in the song, it's like, I really like the adrenaline spike. Golden Shoals were talking about how being at home would feel a lot more mundane if we didn't go out on the road, every 4 weeks, so that we could experience these crazy ups and downs, and like your car breaking down, your rental car breaking down, which I had happen a couple weeks ago. Like, no one would really choose that, but also I think it makes the times at home feel so much more peaceable. And so I think it's like, it's an musicians are interesting creatures. It's like, we crave both, and I think we're always kind of like oscillating between both, which is like, I hate the music industry, and I want to quit, but also like I love the adrenaline spike of playing in front of people, and I love the response, and I love how alive I feel, and how like connected to my life force and like the earth's life force that I feel when I play music in front of people. So yeah, I think it was just like delving into that and like seeing where it took me.
Oof. Amazing.
You're in the state of suspension, tectonic plates stacked in your sink. Your body's a country, burdensome to live in. The sticking, ticking of time. Screw top wine, you turn 29 at midnight. Strip steel fault lines fill your chest, and you call yourself the living dead. But a daisy blooms through your concrete stairs in Montreal.
The next song I want to talk about is In Montreal, which features Allison Russell. This is a song where you revisit past moments in your life in your hometown of Montreal. What are some of the musical eras and moments referenced in this song?
Well, the first one Or one of them is I was 18 and I'd gotten into university to study international relations, very fancy.
Mm-hmm.
And at the last minute, I bailed on the program and I moved back to Montreal. It's my hometown, and I moved in with my aunt. Then I waitressed for a year because I didn't know what I was wanting to do. And then I played at like a lot of pubs, and it was just like such a time of internal confusion. But as I look back on it, like such a hilarious like second era of my teenagedom, you know, of like drinking like Depener wine, like boxed wine with like my friends in the park. Like I don't really do that anymore at like 30. I mean, maybe I should get the 2 a.m. boxed wine park hang going again. But yeah, it's, you know, and so I think with enough of a vantage point, I like looked back on that era of myself with a lot of love and a lot of like, oh my God, you were so funny. Like just lime green jeans, just wearing like these insanely colored pants. This was like 2010, 2011 the American Apparel era.
The era of the weird pant colors.
Yeah, you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, there's like a little bit of humor in that. And then, you know, moving back to Montreal when I was 29 and feeling that very similar sense of the Saturn return, the chaos, the what am I doing with my life? Have I made a mistake by coming back? You know, I was also like really debating whether I wanted to pursue music as Kaia Cater again or just try to shift into composing. And so, yeah, and got hit with a pretty serious depression because in the winter of 2021, the Omicron virus returned, and the Montreal government, the Quebec government, decided to not only shut down all restaurants and pubs and bars, but also they installed a curfew. So you couldn't be out after, I think it was 10 p.m., between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And they were patrolling the streets. So if you were out, you would have to have like some sort of documentation saying that like you worked an overnight shift or were going to work. And we also couldn't gather at each other's homes. So while I totally understand why this was happening, it was just this situation where like this is deep winter in Montreal and I like couldn't see anyone or be out or do anything. And so, yeah, it just, I think when I wrote in Montreal, I was thinking a lot about that era too and how amazing it felt to finally hit spring. Yeah. And just like finally be like, okay, oh my God, there is a world beyond this. Like I can get through this.
Wow.
I can only talk to you through the internet in bits and in bites and right angles. Carved up my life just for the internet. You take the leg, the wing, the shoulder and sing all hail to our God, the internet. I spilled my drink onto the internet. Everything twitched and was gone, Who am I now without the internet? I'm not the saint, the fiend, the stupid machine liking lies like I should like the internet.
The next song is my favorite on the record, The Internet. And I wanted to ask you, what has been your relationship to the internet, like over the course of like when it first came into your consciousness? Like, what was it like at first? When did things change? What is it like now?
Well, I remember when the internet was a place you could go to. So you would be like, all right, I'm going to go to the computer room or the office or whatever.
And go
as a kid,
online.
and I'm going to go on the internet.
Yeah.
I'm going to go online, and then I'm going to get offline, and then I'll be offline for the rest of the day.
Check my email once a day.
Yeah. Check my like my Kaia face at hotmail.com. You know, like just like the those like MSN like did you have MSN?
No, I'd use the internet in the 90s. And it was like, okay, so you had dial up, right? First. So you had dial up, and you had an internet provider, and then you had an internet connector. So like we had like an internet provider called Errol's, and then in order to like use the browser, it was Netscape Navigator. And then like from there you'd go to like the Yahoo page. And I would go check my Hotmail. And why are you getting me to talk about the internet? I asked you.
It's my power. I'm actually interviewing you.
No.
Little did you know.
You can't fool me.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm probably like 10 years behind you. So
let's say 12. Let's say 12 years.
12 years. I had like instant messenger chat where you could like MSN where you could like message your crush when you got home.
Oh, is that what you mean by MSN? The messenger app? Okay, we would just call that IM or AIM.
Okay, maybe this was different in Canada. Possibly. I don't know.
But was it? Oh, yeah, because it was AOL here, and you wouldn't be using AOL in Canada.
Yeah, what is MSN an acronym for? I don't know. I'll look it up.
Okay.
But
get back to us.
Yeah, you could post like moody lyrics, like moody My Chemical Romance lyrics on, you know, or like Green Day. And so that was very much my formative era of the internet. And then even in college, it was like Facebook and Instagram, but they were still, I think, pretty baby versions of what they are now. And so, yeah, I think I'm like just old enough that I remember, I'm like a young millennial. So I remember the era before the internet was ubiquitous. I remember when like mommy blogging became a thing, and like this era of like fantasy, like projecting fantasy onto celebrities and have them like pose in private jets and like that like aspirational lifestyle thing. And now I feel like we're hitting like the scales are tipping where a lot of those like children of family bloggers are like, or family bloggers and vloggers and YouTube vloggers are like, I'm super traumatized and I was on the internet when I was 0, you know? And so I feel like it's kind of cool where now there's a little bit more understanding of like, there has to be limits between your online persona and your human 3D persona. And I think, I mean, that was really blurred during the pandemic. I think the thing that I struggled with when I wrote the internet was like, there was no more seeing people in 3D. And so I feel like I just like morphed into the internet. And, you know, I'm not the saint, the fiend. Like, I think that there are ways in which we can present ourselves so as our perfect version of ourselves on the internet when in real life we're much messier. And yeah, I was just like feeling that kind of like amoebic, like floating in space, wondering when this was gonna end. And like, thank God that like live streams aren't all that satisfying, I don't think. Like I was talking with Tom Power about this. Like he was like, yeah, thank God like shows came back, you know, because I think live streams are important and should be like accompanied with a live show, but they don't really replace a live show, I guess.
Yeah. Yes, we all found that out. And everyone agrees.
Sleep soundly, all your face is ghostly white. We are marching to your mansion in the night. Where's the money? Here it comes, that fearful feeling. Does it make your blood bang? Strange medicine, isn't it? Strange medicine, isn't it? Strange. We were nodding, we were pouring lemonade. We were building stocks of cannons, guns, and blades. I am firing, I am not afraid of, I am not afraid of death. 20,000 armed against the colonists. Here it comes, that fearful feeling. Does it make your ears ring? Strange medicine, isn't it? Strange medicine, isn't it? Strange.
Faye Dawn features the man Taj Mahal. Let's see if I can pronounce the name of your dad's country, because I always get it wrong. Grenada.
Got it wrong. It's Grenada.
This was a question that Lizzie was supposed to ask you, so I'm like, great, I don't have to say it. I'm not going to say it anymore.
Oh, man, you tried.
No, Kaia, you're too nice to me. Okay, so Faye Dawn centers around a revolutionary, Julian Faye Dawn, who began an armed insurrection against British colonists and plantation owners in the country of
Grenada.
There is, so in this song and on this album, like there's internal healing going on, but there's also revolution. So through the lens of this revolution, how is the idea of turning poison into medicine working in this song, in the play of this song? Like, who are the patients? What is the medicine?
I think the patients are, in that context, people who have felt like justice delayed is justice denied. So essentially, I mean, Black Grenadians, I would say, and descendants of Black Grenadians who have inherited a lot of beauty and so much culture and so much life and so much knowledge, and also a lot of trauma from colonialism, right? Like, I grew up with my dad not being near me a lot because he was away working. He grew up with his dad not being near him a lot because his dad was away working. And, you know, I think I've had my resentments about that and still do, and I'm still working through them. But yeah, I mean, I told the story of Faye Dawn mostly because, like, currently the Grenadian Prime Minister and many Grenadian citizens are looking to rescind their Commonwealth allegiance with the British Crown, who, of course, if you're a Commonwealth country, if you're a Black Commonwealth country, you can pretty much assume that the British colonized and then enslaved many of the British colonies, now Commonwealth countries. And many countries have now become republics and have requested reparations from the British government, and Grenada is now in the process of doing that. I think pretty soon they'll have a vote on whether they want to become a republic. And Rishi Sunak, who's the current British Prime Minister, has been very, very resistant to even acknowledging the harms of slavery and colonialism in Grenada. And so like Faidon, yes, it's about a Black revolutionary who like tried to abolish slavery and who went to war with the British and who ultimately lost. But I think the thing that I'm trying to like connect is like hundreds of years later, there's still a thread of that that's being kept alive, you know, within like the Grenadian psyche, I would say.
Creeping through this crowded cafe, you slip off your coat and slither towards some shiny new prey. When you were 29 and I was 17, you coiled around me and I fell down into Wonderland, and Cheshire cat grins, dizzy like Alice, lost in the woods. Kick on the floodlights and face the feeling. I spent 1,000 days trapped in your maze, twisting my body to make you want me. I was younger then, tongue-tied like Saturn's baby, swallowed alive. Kick on the floodlights and face the feeling. I don't want to hide, I don't want to hide from having to face the feeling. I've got an appetite for some healing.
The song Floodlights, you said, I wrote this song about an emotionally abusive dynamic between a young woman, age 17, and an older man, age 29. So you said that you staged the song in a public place. The woman sees her old boyfriend at a bar years after extricating herself. And it kind of wraps up with the verse, you seem pathetic, or you seem smaller now, a little pathetic after all these years of Cheshire cat grins, I'm free. You actually tried to write this song years ago, but you said you struggled to give the protagonist her own agency, which is like so interesting to think about, because the woman in the song, much like you are now like older and wiser, reflecting back, just as you needed to be in order to finish the song. So how does that older version of the character feel about her younger self? Like, how has that changed now that she sees like how pathetic this person is that once had such a hold?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this song is autobiographical. I was in an age gap, in an inappropriate age gap relationship that turned abusive, emotionally abusive. And yeah, I think finally getting free of that was one thing, like physically free of that. But then there's like a whole, it's like chapter 2, like there's a whole other era of healing that has to begin, which is like, wait, why did I think that this was okay? How did I get pulled into this? What are the things that I grew up with that made me ignore the like glaring red flags that there were in retrospect?
Where was the witch when you needed her?
Yeah, like where is that like standing up for yourself, like righteous anger? You know, that was so absent for me in my early life, you know. And that's not my fault. It's like, whatever, shit happens. But I think, yeah, getting closer to 30, I was finally able to like really address that song again, because what I didn't want it to be was like, oh, I'm out, I see him, I'm scared of him, I remember everything he's done to me, and then it ends. I just didn't want that to be my story. I didn't want that to be the story of the song. And so I think, you know, finally I just like made a different choice in the song. And it just felt like also I was making a different choice for me. Like, the person who I thought was like old and wise and like, oh yeah, of course, like he chose me because I'm mature. Like he chose me because I'm a mature woman, and like no women his age really understand him. And like what I think what that really was like no woman his age would go near him,
Yep.
because they would have some sort of understanding and knowledge of like, this is not a good situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he knew that somehow and pursued me. And and so I see that so differently. I have a lot of compassion for that younger version of me. But yeah, I think if I were to meet him now, I'd be like I'm 30 and I can't imagine dating a teenager. Like that's just not ever gonna happen. It's just not. So I think that's pathetic. I think it's like no, like it was cathartic to write it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like so many people, women are gonna relate to that song. Women, men, non-binary people, those power dynamic struggles are a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
In the deep dark woods in the middle of the night, the rain was pouring heavy as if the sky were trying to dry its blackened eyes from crying. The leaves from the trees blew into the house where 4 women they lay sleeping, till one shrill scream awoke them all. They grabbed their coats and rifles. When they got outside, what did they see? But a 10-foot shadow looming. They shot 4 times with shivering spines, and the grassy field went quiet. Once the sun was high, they found their sheep, bloodied and broken, except for one who grazed in the sun, an omen of the autumn. 3 weeks passed and little was said, but they all were tense and sleepless when another shrill scream pulled them all from their beds and to the muddy field running. Show yourself, they cried to the gloom. Show yourself and face us. We've one sheep left and winter's near, so leave us alone or kill us. The shadow turned round and revealed its face, morbid and decaying. It rose to its feet and opened its mouth, and soon it began to speak. What makes you think you deserve any peace, or that nature should be gentle? Do not impose your human laws or prey upon mine.
I just have to say that I am most disturbed by the song Often as the Autumn. And I refuse to talk to you about it because you are murdering little baby sheep, and I hate it.
Oh no. Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry.
So like in the song, it's a ghost story. There are these 4 women co-living in a farmhouse. Their sheep are mysteriously murdered by this supernatural shadow. And then the women eventually confront the shadow, and it is not good. Like, what happens? So like, what do all of these things represent? Like, what does the sheep represent? The shadow? Where is the conclusion? Like, where's the solace in this song? How could you do this to us?
There is no solace. Life is pain. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I think, I was thinking a lot actually about, like, this is based off of a ghost story from West Virginia. And as I was writing it, I was thinking a lot about like ballads where things don't end well, like murder ballads or ballads where, ballads of jealousy. Someone's deeply in love and then they go off to explore the world and then their beloved dies at home. Like, I think it's just these songs from a time where that stuff like was very common. And I think I wanted to experiment with the idea of what if the heroes don't win in the end? Like, what if there is a force that's just too powerful? And the shadow to me is whatever you want it to be. It can be death.
Don't you give me that. Remember at the beginning of this interview, you're like, what's the song about? Well, what do you want it to be about? I'm just kidding.
The shadow, yeah, I think the shadow to me represented depression, and this like all these little hopes and dreams, all these little sheep that you have grazing in the field,
man.
And you're like, these are going to grow up and they're, and this is going to be great. And then like something comes along and like fucking eats the sheep. And like, what the fuck do you do? And yeah, I had a lot of fun writing that. I can write you an alt ending if you'd like. Like, how in I Am Legend, there's like an alt ending where he does save the world or something. Like, I feel like there's like some movies where he lives or something, or the dog doesn't die. I don't know, but I could maybe do like a
yeah, for your next Kickstarter, one of the thank you levels is, we'll write you a new ending for all of the scary fucking songs that I've written.
Yeah, scary fucking songs. But to be fair to me, I think there are a lot of endings where it does end in triumph, I will say.
Yeah.
On the record. A couple of them at least.
I just texted you a picture.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the picture I texted Kaia is of me or someone who looks like me. I think probably in the 6th grade with my sheep, Rosie.
Oh my God. Okay, now I see why it's hitting you deep.
Yeah.
Because I've killed Rosie,
sheep,
which is not.
Our friends.
Yeah, they are. I do agree with you.
The stranger crosses the street like Moses, parting cars like the sea. Maybe he's on his way to an office where he calls his employees a family. Maybe this week he'll sneak to a motel to cheat with a woman from high school. He'll sing a carefree tune and glimmer like a one-sided mirror everybody can see through. What if he's just like me, going through the motions? Oh, what if he's just like me? I've been wondering. I only cross at a street light. I drag around my baggage, but I'm scared to look inside. What would I find but the signs of a wreckage, a collision of exhaustion and grind? I've been working twice as hard to get half as far.
History in Motion. You said this song is a meditation on the differing legacies of racism and sexism and the realities we inhabit depending on how we look at the world. So I find I cannot, and I don't want to speak about racism, but I find as like individually, I can't tell you how I find racism because I do not experience it firsthand. That's what I mean. But I find sexism in 2024 to be like very subtle, very sneaky, kind of like really hard to report to HR on. And I'm wondering, since you've been reflecting on this, like, how do you feel about these covert acts of bigotry and misogyny when people talk about like how far we've come in society?
Let's see. I have a lot of grief about it. I mean, that's a lot of what the record is about. I think I've gotten to a point now where I'm a little bit less quick to make declarative statements. For example, like the Black Lives Matter protests happened in 2020 and, great swift changes have happened. A lot of the changes that were implemented were then clawed back. And so I think that gives me pause and makes me very, very sad and angry. I also think that the word diversity has been kind of like plastered all over everything, like a Band-Aid. When I think when you really push people about conversations about equity or anti-capitalism or socialism, you're a lot less likely to get a positive response. And so, man, I think really the solace that I found is like the work that I can do alongside my friends, the places that I can stand alongside my friends, how I can be supportive to friends and strangers, how I can like use my skill set to like raise money for aid for Palestine, for example, like being part of a concert, doing things online, yes, but offline too. Trying to be supportive, trying to be there for friends who are going through difficult experiences. I think like for me, it's really like the smaller things that I do in my day-to-day life that make the grief of like everything that's going on feel at least a little bit more tolerable or like have some kind of a counterbalance. And observing my feelings, like History in Motion was just me going out and observing the world around me. Art helps heal me. Talking about this stuff helps heal me. There's like countless times that I've just been so upset that like, well, take a random example. Like a lot of white folks will get like talks about like how to manage your finances early on, or will get like life insurance policies when they're born. And I feel like I'm mixed, so I have a lot of privilege, and I feel like there are many ways in which like I started late in terms of understanding, how I can be financially secure, or I think it's just like dealing with like these legacies that, like you said, are really insidious. And when I see people working behind the scenes who aren't like announcing or making declarative statements about what they're doing in a way that's like, look at me, I'm being an ally, it's those people where I'm like, all right, okay, you're like in this to be in it. You're not in it to like post a black square on your Instagram and and then like fuck off after that. I think it's like this idea of longevity, and while also understanding that like no one's perfect and we're all going to be called in or called out at some point. And just to be okay with dealing with that with integrity.
I put on the glasses, make my way along the path. Try to rattle all your cages, let the tigers out and laugh. Now they prowl along the beachside, stalking jellyfish and crab. They curl up behind the seagrass, dreaming sandbar into glass to build a window to see out from.
The last song in the album is about Dottie, the cat. It's called Tigers.
That's right.
Right. Okay. This serves as a closing chapter to all of these explorations about the dichotomy between medicine and poison, subjugation and freedom. So the character is wandering around her memories of past relationships and all the ways that she's felt trapped and confined, like a sleeping tiger is what you say. So by the end of the song, she sees a window out of her own history that she's managed to build herself. And like all she has to do is climb out. I have a couple of questions. Like, so the first question is like, does she climb out the window? What are the positives and the negatives of climbing out the window? Like, what is out there?
Yeah. Really, you know, when I was making the record, I was like, she climbs out the window and then she finds freedom and then everything is great. But actually a year or a couple years into like sitting with this song, I think she does climb out of the window, and then I think she just finds herself in another room with like a different tiger and a different like, okay, well, how do I figure this out, or how do I like kill this belief that I have that I can't do this or that I'm not good enough for, and I think it's also like her saying to a partner, like she's talking about a partner that she's left. And I would assume the partner doesn't understand why. The person that she's left doesn't really understand why. And I think she's trying to say like, I'm trying to go on this journey of like getting out of my own shit. And like, I'm so sorry that I couldn't be there, when like you needed me to be the person that I was, but like I needed to go, and I'm still finding that out. And I think it's kind of this rejection of like, you start off alone and then you couple up and then you spend the rest of your life together. Like, I think even within coupledom, even if you don't break up, like there are many ways in which one person has to go off for a while and like figure it out. And like, maybe they'll come back or maybe they won't. I think in couples within integrity, you're not frozen and locked together. You're actually like ideally swimming alongside each other and maybe going away, and maybe it's scary for one person, but then they come back, Yeah. And so I just, I wanted to have that be the final note.
Well, before I let you go, let's do the lightning round.
Pew, pew, pew,
pew, pew, pew. Okay, Kaia Cater, lightning round. Who is your favorite witch?
Ooh, I would say the three witches from Macbeth.
Good ones. What is your all-time favorite director-composer pairing in film?
That's a good one. I would say Jordan Peele and Michael Abels.
Ooh, wow, love. What is on your banjo case?
It's a soft shell banjo case, so no stickers, but I do have a great John Hartford sticker on my guitar case.
Hell yeah. What is your favorite Montreal treat?
Probably, I mean, I don't know if this is a treat, but like the bagels are so good. And I'll fight anyone who tells me New York bagels are better.
What flavor of ice cream is strange medicine?
Ooh, I would say like some kind of swirl, because it's a lot of swirls of emotions.
Okay. All right, this is the last one. Where's the most beautiful place in the world?
Oh, that's easy. It is Annandale Falls in a small village in the hills of Grenada. That's the most beautiful place in the world.
Excellent. Kaia, thank you so much for talking to me. This has been wonderful. You are you're brilliant. You've helped me so much offline and online, and I continue to revere you.
I revere you back.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. I feel like we've been friends for so long, and I feel like you've seen me through so many different musical eras, and I think, I don't know. I'm learning to love like longevity, long-term friendships.
Sweet. This episode of Basic Folk was produced by Anthony Cabrera. Our music is composed by Alex Stanton. Basic Folk is on the Bluegrass Situation Podcast Network. You can find all of our episodes there, wherever you get podcasts. You can find us on folkalley.com or Folk Alley's mobile app. Search for us on the SiriusXM app under Basic Folk, or you can go to our website, basicfolk.com. If you enjoyed this episode, I suggest sharing it with a friend. Maybe that lady who you helped out at the Wool and Fiber Festival recently, where you, for some reason, you decided that you would volunteer and help her sell these fleeces. And you knew a lot about the fleeces, and she really owes you a favor. And you could just be like, listen, my daughter has a folk podcast, and I think you would really enjoy this banjo player. We could listen to her records while we spin the fleece that we didn't sell at the Sheep and Wool and Fiber Festival. Send it to that lady. I think she would love it. Okay, thanks for listening all the way to the end. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.